If you're a creative person, you might be in a similar situation to me. You have an idea that you're really excited to try when you first think about it, and for me, that was mixing pixel art with real-life videos and photos. But then the questions start. How on earth do I keep them in the right place when the camera moves? How do I make it so that they're standing behind something? What sort of poses and animations should I do?
So I don't have to make
How do I film the shots that I need? How long should I film for each shot? It is a lot. And they build up and up to the point where it completely puts you off the whole idea in the first place, and you never start it. That's been me for the past few years, and in today's video, we're gonna change that. And I hope that seeing my not so perfect process of me trying this idea that scared me will hopefully make your idea feel less daunting and also approachable with the right steps. You okay, Fern? Alright, let's jump into it. Hey, my name is Jade, and I like to paint with pixels. It's probably no surprise that I found starting this project really difficult, even this time. There was this huge mountain of questions, and I didn't know where to start. In my head, I felt like I had to figure out every single step and have an answer to every single question I had before I even got started. But this time, instead of focusing on answering all the questions at once, I decided I will just take one question and start looking at that. That's all. Even if I don't start the project straight after finding the answer, I'll at least have picked up a new skill. To avoid going into the tutorial rabbit hole, I started with a question that I knew that I would need, even for the most basic version of this idea. The biggest question I had was, how do I make my character look like they're standing behind something? If you've done any sort of VFX or video editing, you're probably shouting at your screen right now, "It's a mask! It's just one button!" But as a being who has never done any editing like that, in my head there was 20 steps that I just didn't know about. So finding a super quick tutorial specifically for just that part that simplified it made me feel a lot better about not only that question, but looking up answers for other questions as well, like tracking a point in a shot to attach another image to it. Focusing on one question made the rest of the questions feel a lot more approachable. I followed the tutorials, and though it's not pretty, it showed me the basics of what I needed for my own idea. Once I proved to myself that this was possible, I went out to go get my video clips. Recently, I've been going on a lot of walks in nature and really enjoyed finding a lot of relaxing moments of just noticing the small things on my walk, and I thought it would be nice to share this in a format with my little characters. I wanted this to be a series of short videos highlighting the small joys that are in our day-to-day lives, so I tried to get a lot of different shots. Even if I wouldn't use them all for the first video, I can use them, or reuse them, for a future video as well. I tried to record the shots for longer than I would actually need them in the edit, in case something went wrong or I ran out of footage too soon. Honestly, sometimes I just got a bit awkward and I just left. I started to get a bit self-conscious of people thinking, why are they just filming a tree or a random bush super up close on the trail? If you couldn't tell, this was my first time filming in public, and even though the trail was pretty quiet this day, this is something that I definitely need to get used to. Either way, we got what we needed and we headed straight on to the next step, which was putting the clips together in some sort of sequence to try and tell the story of the walk. While I was doing this, I found it quite helpful to think about what sort of poses I would need for my characters, and if there was any that I could reuse. This is also where I realized that some of the shots wouldn't quite work either, like this yellow plant for example. I thought this was really pretty at the time, but I also didn't see all the thorns all over it, so there was nowhere for my little characters to go safely. Hey, don't look at me like that! You know I'd never actually draw you on some spikes. But this is why it's good to get more footage than you think you'll need at this stage. And you can always use the extra shots in another sequence. When I was happy with it, I moved on to drawing my little characters in the software that I always use on my iPad, which is Pixsquare. So I have a base character that I already use for my stream avatars on Twitch. They're these little characters that pop up whenever you stop by the stream, and you can have them just sort of walk around and hang out. In that setup, I can use the same base animation for walking and drawing, and the only changes that I need to make are with the different heads. It makes it a lot easier to create a lot of variety in the designs with not too much extra work. I thought a similar approach here would be perfect, as I wanted to reuse these poses in multiple shots, and for multiple characters as well. I thought that it would be quite useful in some of the poses to have a few different angles for where they are looking. So I made a grid for a few different directions of where they could look. That way when I have the base pose, I should be able to swap out the heads so that I can add a bit more variety there as well. It'll also help for some of the animations that I make a bit later. After I made the grid, I worked out what some of the poses could be around a generic obstacle of a box. I found that the poses where the character was sat down or popping out from different sides of the box was a good starting point. This is also where I thought about mirroring some of the poses so that they're not only looking towards the camera, but also looking out into the scene, which I thought would make them look a bit more embedded in the space, as if they were looking around it with the viewer. This also inspired me to make another grid of faces, looking in different directions, but this time facing away from the camera. I repeated the steps of adding each character to their own layer following the two grids, so I can hopefully just swap in the different heads as and when I need them. Because I was wanting to reuse this idea for a lot of different sequences, I was trying to make this workflow feel much more approachable for future me than it was for when we were just starting out. Laying some of these foundations with the grids and the different poses felt like it would help future me a lot. When I was happy with the poses, I started to make them a bit more interactive with simple movements like looking around and kicking their feet. I wanted small looping actions that would work well in multiple scenarios. Once they're all done, it's time for the final step of putting them all together in Davinci Resolve. I'm no expert in Davinci, and I think any tutorial that I would make at this stage will be full of mistakes, so instead I'll link all the tutorials that I used in the description and just share some interesting things that I noticed while making this. I learned that tracking needs a good, stable, high contrast point to track, of which I had none in some of these shots because the sun changed mid-shot and I didn't know about it at the time. So reviewing the footage more in the moment so I can retake a shot if I need to is definitely being added to the workflow in the future. This is also where I noticed how shaky my camera work was. Good lord. I did not realize how shaky my hands were. I did what I could with the stabilization features in Davinci, but I will be using a tripod next time, even if I feel embarrassed in public. But to try and study some of the shots that didn't need that much movement, I added subtle movement to still images using a very light camera shake to try and get that handheld effect. The process that inspired this video sort of matched how I approached creating some of the effects as well, noticing small details and then trying to recreate them with my characters. A good example of this is when I saw how cameras switch focus, especially in the shot with the rainbow at the end. The camera zooms out a little as they blur the foreground elements. I couldn't tell you the science behind this, but it was fun to try and mimic the effect with my characters as well, so I tried to blur it at the same rate and also shrink them down a little bit too. With a couple of adjustments, here is the final result. And there we have it! I'm really happy with how I finally got to try this idea out, and it's made me even more excited to try and build on top of it and make it even better. My key takeaway points to keep in mind from this are trying out the most basic version of your idea first. Something without all the bells and whistles, but it just allows you to take that first step. Also, tackle the question that scares you the most first. Make sure that it is still part of your basic version of your idea so that you don't fall off into a tutorial rabbit hole. And finally, this doesn't have to be your only try of an idea. You can always try this again with your improved skills in the future. And I know I'll be doing that with this idea as well. As this was my first go at the idea, there's a ton of things that I would love to fix and adjust, but I think a big part of this process was learning that done is better than perfect. And I hope that seeing my messy process still inspires you to take on that idea that you've been putting off because it felt too big, and by breaking it into little steps and making the most basic version of your idea will hopefully encourage you to give it a go as well. I'd love to know what that idea is for you in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed this experiment with pixel art, check out this video here, where we use a software that might be a bit unexpected for blocking out a 3D space for sketches. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care out there. Goodbye!